Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the Masters of Science in Sport Management alumni panel discussion. We have some of our best and brightest from the Sport Management Masters program here at Commonwealth and Lock Haven. So we appreciate everybody taking time out of their busy schedules to join us, whether you're watching live or you're watching a recording. Again, thank you very much. The event should take probably around 45 minutes. We have a great panel here. And if anybody has any questions, either during the live session or has any questions after watching the recording, please don't hesitate to contact Dr. Teeple or myself. We're always happy to help. But before we get started, if everybody could go around and introduce themselves, and we can start with Dr. Teeple.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. My name is Dane Teeple. I'm a sport management professor here at Commonwealth Lock Haven campus, and I'm also the coordinator of our master's program in sport management.
And Dr. Teeple, what is your area of research? What is like your area of specialty?
Yeah, my background research-wise is in kind of the socio-cultural study of sport and American culture. So a lot of my topics look at the relationship between sport and politics, sport and cultural change, sport and media, things of that nature.
Great, thank you. Jimmy or Dr. Materna?
Yeah, Dr. Jimmy Mattern. I currently teach at Wilmington College. I should have prepared my dates when I graduated, but I'll refer to Peaches because we graduated at the same time from the master's program, 2014, I think. Yeah, there we go. 2014-ish. I went on, got my doctorate degree at the United States Sports Academy. I taught at Bowen Wallace University for a couple of years, and then at Lock Haven University too. So I taught in the undergrad program mostly back at LHU, and now I teach at Wilmington College.
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Zach.
Yeah, Zach Klein, graduated undergrad and graduate fall of 21, well, technically spring of 21. I was a part of the accelerated program my senior year, so I was able to get it all wrapped up into one bunch. But currently the senior director at Creighton University of Ticket Operations, formerly at Towson University in the same field for about 2 years.
Exactly. Peaches.
Hello, everyone. My name is Peaches Brown. I'm the Assistant Athletic Director for Student Athlete Development at Drexel University. Like Jimmy said, we are a part of 14. I believe we were the first cohort of the master's program, so we got it kicked off. Prior to Drexel, I had a few stops at Villanova University, Georgia Southern University, Marist College, and St. Joe's. So a lot of different stops of schools of different sizes within their athletic department.
Great, thanks, Peaches. And Clayton.
So my name is Clayton Gummo. Finished my bachelor's and master's at Lock Haven University in 2021. Currently serving as the operations manager for SSC Services, which is a subcontracted company that serves Texas A&M University. So I currently oversee the operations for maintenance and facilities for the athletic department, rec sports, and all student auxiliary services on campus.
Great, thank you. And I don't think I introduced myself. I'm Tom Crash. I'm our Director of Graduate Admissions here at CU. So I appreciate everyone taking their time. First question, though, going way back, starting at the genesis of your young academic careers, you were probably excellent students. Most of you talked about, being in the accelerated program. Dr. Mattern, you completed a doctorate degree, probably very accomplished students. You could have gone into any academic field. You chose sport management. How did you make that decision? And actually, Dr. Teeple, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off here as someone who would have started.
So the question is, how do we choose this field?
Yeah. How did you end up in this area?
Wow, what a great question. I think it really probably gets to a lot of things that go way back for all of us. I mean, I know I grew up just an immense lover of sports, both as a youngster playing sports and then also as a fan. Right, it was embedded in my social life with friends and family, and it was something that you fall in love with. And then I think as you age, you can't quite kick it. Right, you can't quit that habit. You don't ever want your relationship with sports to end, even though we know as a profession, as an athlete, I mean, less than 1 or 2%, of the population is going to be that privilege and have that fortune. So I know for me, I went to college at a small school in Northeast Iowa. They did not even have a sport management program, but if they did, that's what I would have studied. So for me, the closest thing that a mentor suggested was to study communication. And so I went with it. I took their advice. They said, if you want to work in sports, this is a great broad field that can get you, some application to that area. So I was a communication major. In the summers, I started doing internships with, semi-pro, local, collegiate summer league baseball teams, and my career was off from there. I continued to intern in the sport industry, but eventually realized, as a professor, I didn't know I was going to be a professor at the time, but yeah, I guess my satiation for learning of the topic had not been filled. So eventually I'm like, hey, I want to explore sport at a deeper level. So that's when I just started looking for graduate programs, and that's the short synopsis of, I guess, a 15, 20-year journey to get here. But for me, it was knowing early on, it's a huge part of my life. I never want to stop exploring and learning about that relationship that we have to sports.
Dr. Matter.
Yeah, as much the same as Dane. Our journeys were probably pretty similar. I went to Lock Haven University for my undergrad too. So it was sport administration at the time. So I grew up about an hour away from Lock Haven. Had some friends that went to college there, followed in their footsteps, grew up playing sports. Um, it was the first year that we offered the master's program. Like Pete just said, we were that first cohort. So there were a few of us that had grad assistantships on campus too. So I worked with the women's swim team. I got kind of thrown into that position, which some of you that are listening will probably have Professor Campbell in class. He was the athletic director at the time. Um, so I formed a close relationship with him. We're still buddies today. Uh, so I worked with the women's swim team. I worked with Danielle Barney, who's still there today in compliance. Did some other stuff on campus for my master's while I was studying. And then total circumstance, I was applying to a lot of places, and I came across a doctoral teaching assistant at the United States Sports Academy, and I was applying to everything, so I applied to that too. I heard back from them very, very quickly. Never saw myself being a professor. I tell my students to this day that I was a student that, like, at the beginning of the semester, whenever they tell you you got a group project, I was thinking about that every day because I hated talking in front of groups. I still kind of got that fear outside the classroom. If I have to give a presentation to like a group of colleagues, like a little nervous, might lose a little sleep that night. But yeah, never saw myself teaching, but I love it. I'm going into year 10 now. So it happens fast, and Black even helped set me up for success.
Wow, that's great. Great. Thank you. Zach.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much similar pattern. Started out, growing up loving sports. I lived about an hour and a half from Lock Haven. Had a couple of friends as well that, went to Lock Haven. Also, knew I was interested in trying to look into the sports program and heard a lot of great things about the program itself. Didn't always, try to get myself involved when I could, whether it was through the program or, other side abilities through my degree. Knew I wanted to get a master's degree, right as being a freshman, and, have the opportunity to get into the accelerated program, right away, and kind of get it all bundled into one without having to worry about an extra 4 years of college. Was really a great opportunity. And, one of the jokes that, Dr. Matter would say in his classes, no one really wants to get into sales. But, at the same time, especially after COVID, I applied to everything I could. Was fortunate to make a lot of great connections, and, learn to love sales, learn the back end of everything that I do. And it's just propelled me forward ever since.
That's great. Thank you, Zach. Peaches.
Well, I was a former student athlete, so I played basketball at Lock Haven. I had big hoop dreams. I had a whole plan. I was going to play at Lock Haven, and I was going to go overseas, and then I was going to go play professional. That's when the WNBA was still on the younger side, and then I saw how much you make in the WNBA, and I was like, it doesn't quite seem worth it. I could work a regular job and get paid more than that. So after that point, I knew I wanted to work in sports. So that meant to me get my master's. So my next dream was to coach. And while I was a GA, getting my master's at Lock Haven, I helped coach. So I traveled with the basketball team on top of our duties as assigned for our normal graduate assistantship. And I found out really quick that I didn't want to coach, but I still wanted to be as impactful to student athletes. So that led me into academics for student athletes, which kind of bundled into student athlete development. Back when I was getting my master's and first getting out in the field, student athlete development and academic assistance for student athletes was bundled as one. And over time, as resources expanded throughout the NCAA, those two started to kind of spread into their own entities. So that's my story. Former student athlete, big hoop dreams, still impacting student athletes, which is the ultimate goal.
That's a great story. Thank you. Clayton.
Yeah, so a little more of an untraditional path for me. Grew up in a construction family. Graduated high school, went to Pennsylvania College of Technology for electrical occupations and technology. I After I graduated, I was an electrician. I worked in construction, through general contractor, project manager, worked my way up, but always had a love for sports. Kind of hit a pivot in the road and didn't know what I really wanted to do. Grew up in Lock Haven area, so it was home. Decided I was going to go back to school for something. About the only thing that really kind of appealed to me with the love of sports was the sport administration program. Um, and since then, started there in 2017. Through that, honestly, took the most advice from Dr. Mattern to help kind of guide and move me along here. Trying to get involved as much as possible, in terms of volunteer experiences and part-time jobs here and there. I think at a couple points I was 3 or 4 or 5 part-time jobs, between trying to make a living and carve my way what I wanted to do. And as I kind of grew into it, it was really kind of off topic, but I wanted to find a way to blend a construction side as well as a sports side. There wasn't really a direct path for that, so I had to make my own path. So through that, doing a little bit of work, volunteer experiences with the NFL and NCAA and things, doing some part-time work at Penn State, and then had an opportunity to come down here to A&M. Fiance was here, so it made it a little easier. Found my way with this company down here. I've been at A&M now for 3.5 years going on. Started out as a maintenance supervisor. It's not a flashy title. It's not a fund everyone title. But it kept me doing construction of what I knew and sports and what I knew I wanted to do. So it gave me the best of both worlds. Since then, I've taken, in 3 years, taken 2 promotions, overseeing athletics and rec sports, and then now operations manager over athletics, rec sports, and student auxiliary services. So kind of a off the beaten path way to get there, but made it happen and glad to be here.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. So as students are looking at the master's program, especially for those students who maybe don't have a bachelor's degree in sport management, one of the more common questions that Dr. Teeple and I get is, what do I do in the program? Like, what are the classes like? What are the subjects that are covered in the courses? Could you talk a little bit about your favorite coursework that you took while you were a graduate student at Lock Haven? Let's start with Dr. Matter.
One that really stands out is, and maybe because I didn't have him during my undergrad, is Professor Campbell that I talked about. So I think it might have been even his first year that he was teaching in the program, and I took his sport law class, like first semester, and diving into some of the law topics, doing the case studies and such. That's one that really stands out to me that I enjoyed learning more about. And this day I teach the class too, and it's fun to reflect upon that. That one stands out the most for me.
So when they talk about, and I know we're going back a ways here, Jimmy, but when they talk about like sports law, what are some of the laws that they're referring to? And Dr. Teeple, if you have anything to add, please jump in.
I'll take the easy one. Title IX. Title IX is a big one in terms of female, male, gender compliance and such. So that one's nice to dive into. There's a lot of fun topics that relate to the different areas of legal aspects, but yeah, I took the easy answer. Go ahead, Dane.
I'll let Zach, Peaches, and Clayton jump in too. But yeah, I took sport laws when I was a master's student as well at Ohio State, and it might be pretty similar to what Professor Campbell does. You're looking at issues of I think it's tort law is a lot of it, and issues of negligence and who is responsible when something goes wrong, right? So in sports, you're thinking about fan safety, you're thinking about athlete safety. I'm sure Clayton can add to this from an operation standpoint. If something goes wrong with a facility, even who's liable, right? If there's an injury, God forbid a death, something like that. There's also really interesting cases related to like privacy, right? Do pro athletes have a right to privacy and monetization of their likeness, image, things like that? So in addition to Title IX, right, cases of discrimination, those are some that I remember, issues of liability and I guess the public's right or lack of right to athletes. But there might be other topics as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Great, thank you. Zach, what was your favorite class?
Yeah, I mean, law was definitely up there. But I think one of my favorites was also Dr. Madden. One of his last classes teaching at Lock Haven was the marketing course that we had to take. You know, not just because it was Dr. Madden teaching it, but it was always great to learn the fundamentals of going deeper into the areas of marketing, and certainly applies well to not necessarily my field specifically, but just in the general sense of understanding how to build a marketing plan from the ground up was a really impactful thing that I used in my internal notes when I planning sales ideas and everything about my everyday basis.
Great, thank you. And Peaches.
Mine's was the law class as well. So Jimmy, I'm glad you bring it up. Like talk about like looking forward to reading. There's not often times that you want to actually do the reading for a class, but I remember it was a blue book. It had as the title was in yellow, and my favorite part about the book was the cases were things that I remember like watching on ESPN when I was younger. So to actually read about the cases and see the insides and what actually had everything I actually like that really drew me to the class and made me look forward to doing the reading and seeing like what case are we going to cover next, things like that.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. And Peaches, is the material that you learned in that class, is that pretty relevant for what your role is now at Drexel?
No, in my area, we don't focus a lot on the legal side. We have general counsel that deals with that.
Oh, I guess that's true.
But when the rules trickle down into what we can and we can't do and think the way we have to operate, I guess you can say there's a little bit of correlation, especially now with NIL and the ever-changing rules
Right.
around that.
Yeah, that's a great point. Great, thank you. And Clayton.
I'll be cliche. They were all my favorite. I think I truly and thoroughly enjoyed all the classes that we had. I'd say that the ones that kind of resonate with me the most is probably marketing and then sport law. Sport law more so because I am interactive with that almost every day. And I think at the time, reading about these things and doing case studies and things, I thought I knew, but then being involved with it every day, no one truly knows the amount of sport law type things that go into athletics and athletic department and sports. Um, I mean, almost every decision that is made at our stadiums is involved with either NCAA regulations, Title IX regulations, things that we have to do to stay compliant in a lot of different areas. And I don't think a lot of people realize what sport law per se affects and directs at that point. I mean, from down to how the field is painted, to the what you can have posted in a stadium, what you can have advertised, how you treat vendors and things coming in, how the teams are there and prep. There's so many aspects of it. So I think that while I had several favorite classes, I think that the sports law class resonated the most with me just because I use it every day.
Yeah, really interesting. Dr. Teeple, do you have a favorite class that you like to teach?
Favorite class I like to teach. I've really been getting into, we have a secondary track that many of our students take is international sport management. And so I've been fortunate enough to get to teach a couple of those. And maybe it's just front of mind, front and center right now as the Paris Olympics are winding down. But I really enjoyed teaching that class. It's been an area of growth for me as well. So not something that I specialized in necessarily myself before becoming a professor, but learning about FIFA and the International Olympic Committee, things that go into bidding processes, site selection, just coordination of thousands of athletes coming from hundreds of countries, um, the the number of media personnel, right, that come in, I think even exceeds the athletes. So that's just an interesting dynamic to think about. So I've enjoyed teaching that. I think for my core things that I teach, uh, marketing, which some of them have mentioned has been a class, and Jimmy was a colleague here as well who taught that. So, that's fun because the students, I asked them to design and propose and implement and execute their own project. So, that's one that is kind of a sticker shock, I think, to a lot of students. The first week of the semester, they're looking over the course outline, the syllabus, and I get a lot of emails saying, "Wait, you're saying I got to put something on by week 10, week 12, or whatever?" Like, yeah, you're going to do this, and it's going to happen. So I enjoy watching those projects come together and seeing the creative ideas students have for fundraisers on campus or raising awareness type of campaigns, integrating social media. It's really fun to see what the students can do with marketing projects, just utilizing their resources on the ground. Right. I always tell them start where your feet are at. It sounds intimidating, but I'm not asking you to go to the Pittsburgh Penguins or the Steelers or the Philadelphia 76ers or the New York Liberty and come up with a project and saying, where do you work now? What are you involved with now? What can you do here on campus or at your job or with the community that you're involved with? And once they hear that, then the ball starts rolling.
Yeah, and that's that. Well, yeah, and two quick follow-up points. The first one being, every time the Olympics rolls around, or like it's the start of football season, whether it be NFL or college, this time of the year always reminds me how big of a business sports are, right? I mean, it's a multi-billion-dollar business, right? So you need people that work in the profession that understand the subject matter to be able to support what happens on the field, on the court, what have you, and all the events. And I think that's where this program is kind of coming to help meet the demand. It's no different than hospital and or healthcare administration. It's no different than higher education administration working for colleges. Is as these programs get bigger and bigger, you just need more and more people that have an understanding of the subject in order to help support it. So I think that's a great point. The second point would be is you brought up a great topic. It's a nice segue to some of the some of the professional experiences that are embedded in the program. So a number of you have already talked about internships and grad assistantships and research projects and things. Can you talk about what type of professional experiences you had while in the sport management master's program, whether it be, again, a GA, an internship, or research project, a course embedded project, anything like that? Dr. Matter.
Yeah, as I mentioned in my intro, I had a grad assistantship. There were four of us. Peaches was one, and then there were two other gentlemen that worked within the athletic department. Like I said, I worked closely with the women's swim team. Um, a little backstory on it. It was I don't have any swim experience, so I'm not a swimmer. Haven't been, never will be. But I was kind of put in the position to help the at the time head coach do some paperwork, the administrative side of things. He took another position right before the semester started, so I was thrown into the role of the interim head coach. So I hit the ground rolling really, really fast. Thankfully, I had a volunteer assistant coach that had a wealth of knowledge in swimming. So he ran the practices and all the actual swimming stuff. And then like I did the administrative stuff, kept the team going. Um, And then after they hired a head coach, I was back to being the assistant, the grad assistant, working with the team. I did some compliance stuff with Danielle Barney and the athletic department, did some event management stuff here and there as well. So it was an outstanding experience. The program's actually only 1 year, but we stretched it over two because that's what the grad assistantship programs were. So we actually took a few extra classes just so we can stay grad assistants to keep doing that amazing experience.
And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this at the beginning. So for those of you who are watching, a grad assistant or a graduate assistant, or sometimes called a GA, that is a part-time job on campus where the university would provide a stipend, so a paycheck, and also would cover some of the tuition and fees associated with your graduate degree. And that's what Dr. Matter was talking about. We have a number of them across campus. There are, again, quite a few that are involved with athletics, right, or support athletics in some way, shape, or form. But they're also across the university, whether it's in housing or it could be in an academic capacity. But those are among the options you have to help gain some professional experience. But thank you, Zach.
Yeah. I mean, even starting even in the undergrad side, we always had to get X amount of hours as part of getting your undergrad degree here at Lock Haven. From there, it was just picking a lot of, the management side on the operations of whether I'm helping with soccer games, whether I'm working recreational sports as a referee, or any other areas that I can gain hours to learn and build my interest and experience in sports. From there, then I took on interning with the Little League World Series every fall. I did that for about 2 years up until COVID hit. And then obviously that was a big part in trying to identify a good, both for my undergrad and for my master's, trying to figure out what I wanted to do for internship style. Fortunately, I was able to, tie in some of the Little League World Series, catch the last series of that. But in all ends, I was able to get an internship in the ticket office with the Williamsport Crosscutters, which is partially what led to my interest in ticketing. I was the head of the box office there, as well as managing the merchandise shop, doing a lot of the day-to-day activities there. And that part of that is what's helped, drew my interest into the ticketing side of things and the sales side of sports.
Right, thank you. Peaches.
For me, I went to Lock Haven for my undergrad as well. And a part of me knowing that I wanted to work in sports and wanting to work out in the summertime and have a gym available, I would always stay at Lock Haven for most of the summer. During that time, I would work with, is Doug Spatterford? Is he still at Lock Haven? So I would work with Doug in sports information, and I would help out with Danielle Barney in undergrad. And then I found out real quick that I didn't want to do compliance and I didn't want to do sports information, but they were paying at the time, so I helped them out. But also for the undergraduate program, like Zach mentioned, we were required to do an internship. So the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference is also in Lock Haven. Not sure if it still is. So I was able to do my internship at Lock Haven, which was also my senior season of basketball. So I was able to do that and still be able to play and graduate on time, which led into getting my master's and being a graduate assistant, or we call it the GA. So how it was set up, we all help with football because all hands on deck for football. It takes a lot of moving parts to run that. And then we all had sports divvied up. So I had we all helped with football. I had volleyball. In the winter, I had basketball. So during away games, I would travel with them and take stats on the bench. And then during home games, I would be on the operations side. So ensuring everything is set up for the game, chairs were out, officials had their lockers. And then in the spring, I had baseball. Baseball in Lock Haven on the river is very cold. So I found out if I was going to be in sports, I wasn't going to have an outdoor sport. So there was a lot of things that kind of came into play, but as Jimmy mentioned, spreading it out to 2 years really allowed the opportunity to really dig in and to figuring out what you want to do, what you don't want to do, be able to develop and create programming and almost get it off the ground and even see it through and hand it off to the next GAs that came after us. So it was a great opportunity to have that 2 year stint while getting our master's and getting that experience as well.
That's great. Thank you, Peaches. And Clayton.
I tried to do a little bit of everything, and I did. my first semester there, started working with Danielle Barney as a student assistant in the athletic department. Set up tear down of games. A lot of the things that Peaches said. They needed an announcer for a game. I was the announcer. Whatever they needed, I was there. Um, did a lot of that. In class, any kind of volunteer opportunity, experiential learning experiences, things like that. Take advantage of it. I did basically every one that was available to me at the time. Spent some time as a GA with Doug Spatafor in sport communication, SID. Did another GA position with Dr. Campbell. So spent some time with him as well, kind of more the academic side. Spent some time doing that. Also working part time, Little League World Series, Penn State University. Basically, if I had a spare minute in my schedule, I tried to pack something in there. It was one of those things where I didn't have, at almost no point in time, I didn't have a set direction as to exactly what I wanted to do. I had ideas, but the thing I wanted to do in meshing, construction and things like that with sports, there wasn't a direct path again. So it was doing a little bit of everything to help figure out how I could carve my way. So I've from mopping basketball courts to announcing at games to being security to mowing Beaver Stadium's, turf to whatever I could possibly do, I was doing it. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities in the classes to do volunteer experiences and things like that, and there are some requirements in coursework. But I think that trying to find things outside of the normal that most students are doing, that's what's going to make you special. And trying to pack your schedule as much as possible. It's busy, but it'll get you where you want to be.
Yeah, and you've got this very narrow window of time to, finish your bachelor's, or in this case, your master's degree. And while you have that window, you want to maximize every moment, because once that window closes, it's not coming back, right? It's really hard to do this later in life. When you have a job, you have a family, you have more responsibility. So when you're in that time, it's like you've got to maximize that. So that involves not just being a good student, but also looking for all the professional experiences you can possibly have, because that's going to make you better. It's going to make you a better job candidate, right? You're going to get a better job right out of the gate if you have all those experiences. If you have the degrees in hand and you have a resume as well, it's going to make you very special. So I think, Clayton, that's a great example of that for sure. Um, do you have any really impactful moments that you can remember from your academic experience? Like, was there any one moment where it's like, this is the one that really helped me the most? It could have been a class, could have been a project, it could have been a capstone experience of some sort, anything that you can keep, or that you can be mindful of is like, now this is the thing that really kind of set me up for success. That's a tough question to answer. Dr. Matter.
I think the relationships with the professors, and I'm a little biased because I'm still a professor, but we're your allies, and I'll say we're because I'm currently doing it, right? But use them. They're beacons of knowledge, not only for the course materials and whatever class that they're teaching, um, but as a network too. Dane, Peter, Bridget, everybody else that teaches in that master's program there. Um, they know people, right? They can help you get the job. I still use it as an example in my classes, and it's still true today, is that Professor Campbell helped me get my doctorate. He wrote a nice letter of recommendation. He hooked me up with somebody that went through the same program so that I could talk to him about it. He was my connection for my first job and probably my second job back at Lock Haven. He's still a reference on my resume today. Um, use those. And like Clayton said, and I think we've all said it, it's as much about the stuff you're doing outside of the classroom too. That master's degree will help set you up for success, and it might get you that promotion and that pay bump. But it's really about the stuff you're doing outside of the classroom too. So with those spare minutes that Clayton talked about, filling that up and getting the experience, because as we all said on here, we all did it, right?
Yeah, that's great. Zach.
I think Dr. Matter said it best. It's all about, it's not only just your relationship with your professors, but it's about how much work you put in outside, how much you try to go to expand your relationships with other people. Because in the sports world, it's all about who you know.
Mm-hmm.
and how you impact with a professor, is more deciding if you want to come to them at the end of your tenure and say, hey, I need a letter recommendation. If you weren't putting in the effort, or if you weren't, doing the work, they might not even want to accept that. But I mean, these guys and gals at the professors and everyone there, they've been a huge impact with, helping set you up. If you put in the work, there's people that they know that will help get you started in your career.
Great, thank you. Peaches.
I think I'll echo what everyone else says. This is really about the connections. Dr. Campbell was my undergraduate advisor. And before knowing that Lock Haven was going to have a master's program, I was supposed to go to Cal. And then he called me like, hey, we're starting one. Do you want to come back here? And I was like, who's paying for it? And he was like, we're starting graduate assistant programs. I was like, well, sure, I'll be back. So just having that opportunity, people to be able to plug you in and connect you. I call them he lolly and she lolly. They are great people to have in your corner. I actually was talking to Dr. Patricia Lolly. I called her maybe about 2 months ago because I needed some advice. I've been out of the program 10 years and I still will reach out to her if I need some advice with some things. Danielle Barney, she connected me to my first internship at Villanova. So it's really the people really take you a long way, and they care about what you want to do, and they ask the good questions like, what do you want to do next? How can I help you get there? And they tap into their network and their connections to help you get to your next step. So in addition to submitting that paper on time, just definitely make sure you try to build that relationship with your professors. Sports and athletics, especially collegiate athletics, may feel like very big, because there's so many institutions, but it's very small world. And when you're going to apply, it's very helpful to be able to call someone and ask those other questions that you may not see in the job description.
No, that's great advice. Thank you, Peaches. Clayton.
I think for me, there was kind of two moments. I think the first one was, you know, kind of accepting and volunteering to do the work that no one else wanted to do. Firsthand experience working with Danielle Barney. Not a lot of folks wanted to stay after a game was over to help clean up, put things away, little minuscule tasks that most people don't think. As a fan, they go see the game and they leave. I think not having an issue with doing the little things that no one else wanted to do and the things that weren't always popular and glamorous. I think that was kind of that aha moment for me, because I didn't have a problem doing that. I liked being behind the scenes. I liked being a part of that, knowing that I was doing a part, no matter if it was in front of a camera or not. So I think that was the first moment for me. And, along with what everybody else said, the relationships with the ones around you, most importantly, professors. I'll give a shout out. I wouldn't be where I was at today if it wouldn't be for Dr. Mattern. There was several times, a very, very serious time, where I almost dropped out, and I thought that I almost worked myself out of a degree, and thought about giving sports up. And it was someone who's been there, someone who's with me every day, and was seeing that the work that I was putting in is going to pay off. I just needed that little bit of inspiration to go ahead. So, I mean, I owe it all to the relationships that I have with those professors there, Dr. Campbell, Miss Round, Dane, Jimmy. I owe it all to them, and I think that, just like everyone else said, relationships will take you everywhere you want to be. So hang on to those, maintain those, cherish those, and use them to the best of your ability.
Yeah, it's great advice.
I just want to jump in there and piggyback on this question. And Clayton, I mean, those are really touching words that you share with Jimmy and I and our colleagues, and Zach, Peaches, Clayton. You all got to know how much I think that's a reciprocal thing too. I mean, that's the kinds of experiences that you all go through, and getting to be a part of that ride and that journey for you all. That's kind of why we're here as well. So we get just as much out of it, and we're happy to be a part of those moments as well. But what I want to say about this too, thinking as from the perspective as the coordinator of the program, right? We were 100% online program, and so you all had the benefit of going to Lock Haven, as undergraduate students, and then kind of continued on into the master's program and maintain ties here and maintain relationships to the facilities and the people and the places. But you all know, right? There are a second half of our population of students who may be new to Lock Haven, or maybe don't come back on campus in a GA role or other capacity, but they're purely taking this program through that virtual experience. So I guess the question I want to throw out to all of you is, it's kind of a two-pronged or two sides of the same coin. How did you feel that you were influenced as well in your classwork, I suppose, in discussion forums, projects, et cetera, by those students who are outside of the Lock Haven bubble, right? Either as they're already full-time employees themselves working in sports, or teachers or coaches. How did that influence you? And also, what advice would you have to them? Like, how can they capitalize on all these great networking experiences and relationship building, even though they don't have the benefit of being on campus physically? Dr. Madden will go ahead and start. We'll go the route on the camera here.
Yeah. I think you still do all the things that we're talking about. It might not be on campus at Lock Haven, but you probably have a job. And if you don't, you're probably doing something in the sport fashion. If you're not, take advantage and do that. And I think you guys have a benefit of, right now we're sitting on a Zoom webinar, right? Back whenever Peaches and we might have had Skype, but it was super grainy, and our professors probably didn't use it. I might give Dane and all the other professors within the master's program more work to do, but I think they're all willing to jump on a Zoom and to have that personal interaction with you, so you can still get to know them virtually if you're not on campus or local. Um, that's my best advice. Still do all the things we're doing, even if it's in a different fashion.
How about you, Zach? What do you think?
I think Jimmy said it best. I mean, you could still you can still do everything, even though you can still always reach out to your professors, set up one-on-one time with them. They'll always make time for you. And I think, balancing, the program, it sets you up really well with learning how to be really resourceful with your own, time management. Really sharpens your tools for, even if you're already doing a job, you can apply, you work in your normal hours, and then, you got a 15-page essay for Dr. T-Pole due the next day. You kind of be able to prepare yourself and, be able to balance your workloads and, prepare yourself for the real world.
Thanks, Zach. How about you, Peaches? Were you able to engage at all and interact with these non-LHU students in the program?
Sure, I remember. I'm trying to remember what class it was. Maybe it was something around like operations or marketing, where we had a group project, and one of the young ladies that was in my group, it had to be a marketing class. She worked for like a marketing firm at the time, and she was a mother, so we had like late meetings, but the experience she was getting at work actually helped us with our project and being able to get it done and having that different perspective. For me, that was just in athletics, still young, and all I knew was athletics at the time. So it was definitely great to have people that weren't doing the same exact thing that I was doing, for those different perspectives. And then the other thing I'll hit on is just that power of network. Like, not only are you tapping into great professors, but the network of all of us and everyone else who graduated from the master's program, whether it's just taking a call, or I think there's a couple of people who have sent students my way, like, hey, this person is interested in athletic administration. Can you talk to them? And I've hopped on a call with a couple of past students just to tell them a little bit about exactly my relationship in athletics and the things that I've experienced, and me connect them to people I know to help them get where they want to be. So it's a great opportunity whether you're on campus or not.
Fantastic. And last but not least, maybe next time we'll start with Clayton.
Yeah, so I think that it really, the online portion of it really puts into perspective, uh, you know, life goes on and everyone is dealing with different things and everyone's doing different things. I think for me, it was an eye-opening experience. You know, I was not a fan of school. I hated sitting in a classroom. I did not think of myself as a scholar. And, you know, going into the master's program with it being fully online, I kind of went into it with the attitude of, oh, it's online, it's easy, you know, so on and so forth. But I think having a class, you know, having classes in there and having people from all different perspectives. I think in most of my classes, I had a girl who she was a nurse, and you know, kind of different areas of life. Some had family, some couldn't make meeting times and class times because they, you know, had working two jobs, so they were, you know, burning the midnight oil every night trying to get classwork done. So I think it really, you know, hey, if these people can do it, I can do it. You know, and I was a busy person, but I, you know, I didn't have, you know, I wasn't married, I didn't have children. So I think I used it as a tool to push me. And it's like, wow, there are other scenarios out there. There's a way to do this and still succeed. And I think that the opportunity that we had and the professors we had and the tools we had and material we had helped to set that up, whether it was me or someone who had a lot of different things going on. So I think it really helped to drive. I mean, there's plenty of times where I was I hopped off a mower at Beaver Stadium and sat in the Beaver Stadium parking lot and finished up case studies or finished up assignments, things like that. And it was the fact that, hey, I have it pretty good. If I can do this, or if the other people can do this, they're in these classes, then I can do it as well.
Thanks for adding on those perspectives. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you, guys. So as we come up on an hour here, we have some rapid fire questions here for you. What was you know, do you have any advice? Or let me back up. What were some of the things you wish you had known prior to starting the master's program in sport management? Was there anything that really surprised you? It's like, oh man, I wish I had known that. Or if you had to do it over again, maybe what would you have done differently? Dr. Manning.
Am I allowed to call on Clayton? I really can't think of anything. I know it might sound cliche, but it really did. I think from listening to all us, it set us all up for success. I don't think I would do it any differently. If there was any advice, get involved, do all those things. Even like I waited until my grad assistantship to get involved. Like undergrad, I didn't do much. So whenever I was even applying to jobs after my master's, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely going to get a job. That might still take a little bit. So maybe don't get discouraged whenever you finish this thing up and you're applying to jobs and it's like, ooh, it still takes a little bit of time.
That's great advice. Zach.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really sticks out indefinitely. I mean, probably go off of what Jimmy said. I mean, it took me a handful of times, you know, I was applying everywhere I could, you know, basically relying on ticketing as my, you know, May experience. You know, don't let the, you know, when you apply for a job, don't let the expected experience of like 3 to 4 years, you know, intimidate you. You show your worth through interviews and that sort of stuff. So you know, don't be afraid to apply to anything.
Great. Thank you, Zach. Peaches.
It's definitely hard to think of what I would have done differently, because you think about everything you do leads you to the good and the bad things that you have now. But something that's very simple is that the case of time management. You know, being a grad assistant and taking a master's program, essentially like having a full-time job and taking classes on top of that. And those case studies do add up, and those papers do get pretty long, pretty quick if you procrastinate. So just having that time managed, really probably things you all heard in undergrad, really looking through the syllabus and lining up when you're going to get things done based on your individual.
Great, thank you. Clayton.
Biggest thing is embrace the unknown. I mean, I think so many people go in the first couple semesters, they, you know, are taking certain classes, and it's kind of hard to not think about, okay, well, I need to like this, or I need to be interested in this, or I need to, you know, have to go down this path. You know, embrace the unknown. You know, don't be afraid to be uncomfortable. Take it as a learning experience. I think what a lot of people take for granted is that there's so many things around us that are learning experiences that we overlook it. Um, if I went back, there's so many things that I know now that I learned at Lock Haven and didn't realize it at the time. So I think embrace it, and that's in the classroom, outside the classroom. I did not like speaking in front of people. I did not like managing, and now I manage about 150 people. I didn't like any of that, and I didn't know that I would. It took a while to get comfortable with it, but embrace the unknown. It might be scary for a little bit, but I think that it'll help develop you as a person. So take advantage of it.
Great, thank you. Can you just quickly walk us through a day in your current professional careers? I know no 2 days are ever the same, but if you could maybe hit on some of the more consistent tasks that is part of your portfolio of work, Dr. Matter.
I have the fun job of teaching students. I love it. It changes every year, as Dr. Teeple probably knows. But I wake up in the morning, I drop my 2.5-year-old off at daycare, and then I go into the office, prep for some classes, maybe a little bit, answer some emails, go to class, go to lunch, have a couple meetings in the afternoon, go pick up my little guy, and hang out with him until it's bedtime.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the fun parts about my job is that I get to build the events that we sell. So kind of as we're getting into the start of our athletic season at Creighton, daily job looks like hopping on the computer, signing into our system, tracking sales, putting together reports for the boss, prepping for some meetings, emails. If we got a game day coming up, prepping for that, getting the cheer on the Jays at home, and then just kicking it back and relaxing, get ready to do it all over again.
Great, thank you. And, Peaches.
The world of student athlete development, it really depends. Every day changes, the seasons change. But to pick a busy time, which would be fall for me, uh, try to get a workout in the morning before I drop my there. I get to work. I may have some meetings with students. I also oversee field hockey and our softball teams academically. So I may have some one-on-one meetings with those athletes. In between those meetings, I may be preparing some slide decks for a board of trustees meeting that's coming up. I'm involved in what we call Team Dragon. So I may have some meetings with what we call executive cabinet or higher up administrators going through all of the updates and that relate to the student athlete programs that I oversee, which is our SAC, which is the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, or we have a Morgan's Message chapter, which is mental health related, and we also have a Black Student Athlete Union. So giving our senior executives updates on where those groups are, after that, I also help with programming I actually oversee all of the programming from a development side. So I'll put together some content for a leadership academy to get that ready for me to facilitate later in the evening. Probably have to order some pizza for a SAC meeting. It really depends. Like every day is so different, but that's what I like because I can get a little bored sometimes, but not in student athlete development. There's always a need. There's always something to do.
That's great. Clayton.
Oh, where to begin? So most mornings waking up, getting to work, and knowing that we are X amount of days from football season, X amount of days from volleyball, X amount of days from soccer, so on and so forth. Kind of juggling around all the needs of those different buildings, different programs. Usually starts out with several meetings with those internal in our office. And then I'll be honest, it's a lot of meetings and a lot of planning, a lot of project management. Usually have at least a meeting at least every other day with leadership in the athletic department, from head of our grounds crew, from assistant associate ADs, to those working in the facilities themselves. We're planning out game days, making sure stadium's ready. deal a little bit with new NCAA or SEC for our case, regulations coming in, things we have to provide, things we can and can't have. Right now, we're finishing up a $300 million student athlete academic center renovation. We're kicking that off here in about a week. So a lot of final prep for that. Finishing up some new remodels of Kyle Field. So a lot of project management meetings, things like that. At the end of the day, it's pretty hectic and it's a lot of back and forth and a lot of running around, but it all pays off when you see the stands filled and you see the joy on people's faces coming to watch a football game on Saturday or watching a baseball game Sunday night, things like that. So it's a lot going on, a lot of people, a lot of phone calls, a lot of conversations, but it's worth it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Other than your current job, what is your dream job? If you could pick any role,
This
dream
one's
job,
easy for me.
Dr. Matter.
Peaches is my dream job. Even going back to whenever I was in the program of my master's and I was learning about different positions in the realm of college athletics, student athlete development was kind of a new topic at that time, and it's been growing across numerous campuses where some D3 schools even have a separate position for that because it is so important making sure that they're doing well in the classroom. Um, there's still some jobs. I get the job alerts, right? So not always looking for a new job, but I'm like, ooh, student athlete development at the University of Cincinnati. That's only half an hour down the road. I might throw in for that one. Working with student athletes has always been my passion. I'm also the faculty athletics rep here, so that's my in to working more with within the athletic department and with the student athletes too.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thanks, Zach.
I mean, before COVID hit, facilities was really the style that, I started to want to lean towards. But obviously, like made it sound like, that there might not even be a need for anyone, for a couple of years. Turned my tides towards the sales side. But, definitely have always been keeping an eye to see what I can do to get myself back into that spot. Otherwise, want to keep working my way up into the professional side, hopefully at some point in my career, in the ticketing.
So, thank you. Peaches.
I would say for me, I am doing it. I would like to move up in the ranks, as Zach mentioned, like maybe associate AD. I don't think I want to be an athletic director because I feel like that's a little too removed from the student athlete connection. But I'll say if I'm not there, I'm right there doing what I want to do. And it made me think about when Clayton was speaking about the complexity of his jobs. A tidbit for anyone who's working full time and wanting to do the master's program is schedule meetings with yourself. I schedule a lot of meetings with myself to make sure I'm checking emails, make sure I'm working on reports that need to get done. I work in a very calendar friendly environment. So if your calendar is open, you will probably get a meeting scheduled. So sometimes you got to schedule a meeting with yourself to make sure you get the things that are on your to-do list done. So anyone working at full-time job, just make sure you kind of schedule some time for yourself to get things done.
That is great advice. I've never heard that. Schedule a meeting with yourself. I want to follow that advice. I appreciate that. Thank you, Clayton.
I mean, I'm in a position that I didn't know was an option. So I think I'm in a really good position. What I do now, I love my job. Maybe escalate a little more, get up, go back, full time on the university side and work up to, associate AD of, facilities maybe. But honestly, I wouldn't mind taking a step back, and I'd like to mow the grass. I'd like to be the head groundskeeper. I wouldn't mind taking a step back. So, I think having experience in a lot of different realms of athletics and stuff, I think it opens up the possibility. But honestly, I think, what I'm doing right now is my best spot, and this is where I'm best served.
Yeah, Clayton, you're 100% at some point going to be the guy who's like in charge of the field for the Super Bowl. Like what they call him, the sod father.
Don't want that.
But that's going to be you.
Started down that road a couple times. I don't know if I want all that.
That's going to be you, man. I see it. Final question before we sign off for the night. Do you have any final advice for prospective students who may be considering the program? Dr. Teeple, can you kick us off?
Final advice for students considering the program. Well, of course, from this seat, it's fill out that paperwork, get it, or not even paperwork. I would say hit that button, hit submit, right? If you're already thinking about it, you're over halfway there. So I would say take that leap of faith. Hopefully, you hear from everyone here tonight. I mean, what an impressive body of students that we have. For a little old school, in the middle of central Pennsylvania. I mean, I think the stories that come out of this place are just incredible. And you have 4 just unbelievable exemplars of that right here. So my final advice would be, now's the time. You're in the right place. You're in the right headspace. Just go for it. Reach out to me. Reach out to any other faculty. We can get you in touch with folks like you see here in front of you tonight. And, don't look back. You'll be on your way.
Jimmy.
Yeah, same. Do it. Fill out the paperwork. It's awesome to sit here as a professor that had both Zach and Clayton in classes and to see them having tremendous success. And there's so many other students too. They could have, Dane and Tom probably could have picked out anybody that went through the master's program to have them talk to you because they're doing great things with their careers. It's awesome to connect back with Peaches too, because we went through the program at the same time. I actually interned at the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference right after she did. So that was a nice little small world moment there too. It's a phenomenal program. It will be beneficial to your careers. Do it.
Great. Thank you. Zach.
Yeah, broken record. Definitely take that jump. There's a lot of great professors at Lock Haven that will set you up for a great career. Especially if you're an undergrad and you're on the fence about it. If you got the GPA, hop in the accelerator program. It's 100% worth it.
No, just
echoing what everyone else says. It's only a year program now. So a year is not a long time. You'll look up and think a little too hard, and we'll be in 2025. If you're on the fence about whether you want a master's or not, again, a year is not a long time, is worth it. And then the connections that you get out of it as well. Like you're not only getting your master's, but you're getting access to the network of connections from professors and staff that come along with the degree. So that's a personal gain to be able to tap into that.
Great, thank you. And Clayton.
Don't be afraid to go out and do something different. Don't be afraid to see what other possibilities are out there. I think a lot of people think just working in sports is a very broad term and a broad idea. But as you can see here with what everyone in this meeting is doing, there's so many different, realms of sports or so many different jobs and things that all work together to make sports and athletics happen. So you never know. You might just think sales, marketing, whatever. But look at me. If I said that I was going to be a construction worker working in athletics, I'd have never guessed that. So, embrace it, use the skills and the relationships that you have at your disposal, find your own path, take advantage of it. Don't be afraid, try something new, see what else is out there and just run with it.
Yeah, and it took me like over an hour to recognize this, but I think one of the cooler parts about this field is you all work in the field, but in very different capacities, probably based on what your own area of interest is. It's not quite like a Rorschach test where you can like infer your own interpretations of things, but it's almost like a moldable career where it's like if you like the marketing and sales part of this, that's a whole wing of this. If you like the athletic operations, there's a whole other world of it. If you like student athlete development and academic advice like that, there's a whole other aspect of this. If you like, the ticket sales and marketing and event plan, there's a whole part of that. Like it's almost customizable. And I think that's so fascinating and that's such a great point. And it was really perfectly illustrated, probably intentionally by Dr. Teeple. And it never even dawned on me like, oh, you guys all do really different things, but still under the umbrella of sport management and athletic administration. So that is awesome. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate our panelists, those of you who are watching live or who are watching the recording. We appreciate your time. Again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us. We are happy to help in any way. And we look forward to hearing from everybody in the future. And everybody.